Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you always so much for tuning in every Tuesday here on LinkedIn at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have you ever wondered what microaggressions are? It is defined as verbal, behavioral, and environmental indignities that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults to the target person or group. For Black and Brown people, they are ubiquitous across daily work and life. You might also be wondering what this has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. This illustrates what happens in the US corporate workplaces and how often we let it go. My name is Rochelle Carrier, and I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate. And for a living, I help thought provoking leaders implement DEI workshop programs in their workplace. And if you tune in, not only will you have a better insight of our experiences, it will allow room for self reflection. In our previous episodes, we shared how often we are used as tokens and how it affected or helped us. Today, I'd like to reintroduce to you to Sahar Akil. She has 15 years experience in sales and marketing with a focus on the consumer packaged goods industry. Previously, she worked for Fortune 500 companies like UPS and L'Oreal. She has not stopped there. While packing a punch, she was currently working as an e-commerce national sales manager at an international furniture company. Her main focus is advocating for women in the workplace. Sahar, welcome.
Thank you for having me back. Always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for always coming back and sharing your stories. If you can tell us and you could share with the audience for those of you who haven't had the time or not maybe the opportunity to watch the show in the past, can you tell us what exactly happened?
Yes. In working for large corporate 500 companies, I was subject to gaslighting, intimidation, aggression. One of more so publicly was when I worked for L'Oreal. I went on two burnout leaves due to the microaggression, the harassment, the overworking, um, which resulted in, um, you know, no no change within the company or no change within my role. Um, and that really reflected back on L'Oreal's company, where they, say one thing to the media and to the public, and it's a completely different story internally as to how they're actually managing their companies and managing their employees.
Right. So what is it when you say you were gaslit? Can you explain to the audience what that means?
Yes. So gaslighting is basically when someone um, tries to alter your reality or alter your memory in terms of saying a situation or event didn't take place, or undermining your feelings or memory of that actual event. So, for instance, one of the things that happened while I was at L'Oreal was that my manager told me that I needed to um, basically compare myself to a male colleague, a male Caucasian colleague, to get ahead, while I was basically on top of my game, working 60 plus hour, and was considered one of the best in my role.
So so he basically so you were basically so he basically said that he had you were you had to compare, I apologize. You had to compare yourself to him. Where is the comparison? And how does that compare?
I didn't understand either, just because I felt like I was better in my role than that person, than the other colleague. I've gotten better feedback overall from the different teams we used to work at. I've also put in processes that are currently being used throughout L'Oreal. So I just didn't understand um, what made him better than me, other than the fact that he was a Caucasian white male.
Right. So you were gaslit basically by him doing what?
Him just being them. My managers basically used to tell me that I wasn't doing as good of a job as I knew I was doing, which made me second guess everything, and was ultimately one of the things that led to my multiple burnouts. One of the reasons why I went back after my first burnout was because I wanted to prove to myself and to everyone that doubted me that it wasn't me as a person or me as an ability to perform my role, and it was actually the toxic culture within L'Oreal that uh, was the reason for my burnout. And it wasn't just me. It was a well-known fact that L'Oreal, if you work at L'Oreal, you are bound to go on a burnout leave. Um, you know, anytime while you're working there. And it's completely common. It's very common, actually, to a point that when I was seeking, uh, when I was looking for therapists or doctors or anything, or lawyers even, I was told that, oh, you work for L'Oreal, okay, yeah, you really need the therapy. Or I spoke with a lawyer and he says, oh, I worked with L'Oreal before, and they treat people like shit, and it's better to just get out than pursue them in any ways because they are such a large corporation.
Right. So when you said it led to multiple burnouts, so you constantly felt that you had to prove yourself to them.
Yes.
So during those burnouts, what was there any support?
Um,
Did they recognize that there was, I think that's probably the biggest problem
mhm,
when they're not in our shoes or in our skin.
yes.
There's no empathy. So it's very difficult to understand where the other person's coming from.
Mhm.
I'm not justifying what they've done, but I see, and it's going to lead to probably other questions and discussions throughout this talk. But I see how a lack of representation can often hinder women and men of who are brown and black. Right? Would you agree?
Completely. And that was actually one of the discussions that I had with them through email and in person, with HR, with the head of their diversity commission, their diversity inclusion. So I've had it with the top levels within the company at L'Oreal Canada, and nothing has been changed. No policy has been changed. There has been no additional uh, people or representation added on to the management, to the upper management team, that people of color, or just the BIPOC community can go to for some sort of advice or some sort of guidance. One of the things that I did bring up, because I was gaslighted by my managers and HR, was that I wanted a person of color or a woman of color in a HR management position to be involved in my meetings, to like for my year-end meeting. Just because I did not feel comfortable having that one-on-one with my managers, just because I've received the gaslighting so much. And it wasn't a thing. They did not have a person of color in HR to start with, and especially not in management. So one of the things I actually see on my platform is one of the easiest way to know if a company is uh, ethically there or not is to look at their exec boards, look at who are the people that are actually making profit off of the employees below them and off of the consumers. And so I always say hashtag show me your exec board, because when you actually look at the executive boards in large corporations like L'Oreal, you'll see how male dominant it is. Even with them being a very prominent marketing company and putting women of color and with all backgrounds on their campaigns, it's not reflective of the insides or the internal corporation or their culture. They're still very much a French first company, um, other than anything else.
Right. And the you mentioned that it didn't represent, or it wasn't representative of who you were, because you didn't really trust them. So now, you're working against multiple factors.
Mhm.
You're being microaggressed, gaslit, undermined, and now you're being told that we don't have anybody to represent you. So how else did that make you feel?
Um, it just made me feel really unheard. It made me feel really unvalued. It really reflected really poorly on the company, because I knew that externally they were putting out ads of diversity and wanting
Right.
to hire, more people of color and all of this stuff, where internally, a lot of the people, or the people that were promoted, were Caucasians. The people that did move fast within the company were Caucasians, and the roles that were given to the BIPOC community were ones of entrance level, or roles that did not actually go anywhere. Another issue that I brought up was also the pay differentiation. So
So
it's
there was pay inequity.
yeah, pay inequities. Thank you for
Right.
that.
Right.
Um, it's funny because every single thing that they market that they say that they're good at, they're actually not. So, for instance, I had been in my role the longest. I had the most experience. I was the one that was actually training other people within my role, and I found out that two people that just graduated university were making more than I was, and that was never explained why. And HR fully told me that I should be grateful for what I'm making, because it was the third best.
Basically, be quiet because you have a job.
Yes. And they didn't understand why I was asking for more or asking for equal pay.
So not only did you not have support from the managers or HR, but now you're being passed up probably for future promotions,
100%.
and right, passed up for future promotions and not having equal pay.
100%. And I also felt like I wasn't given opportunities that others were privy to. I asked for a mentor. Just I wanted to see what else was out there. They said that I had to go find one myself, and it's super hard when you're a little brown girl in L'Oreal, and everyone that is in any sort of position or any sort of managerial overhead is Caucasian and male, because you, first of all, you don't have any sort of introduction. So HR didn't even want to get involved in introducing anyone. They're just like, you find them, you that this is on you. So even though they say, oh, we have this mentorship programs, we have this and that, a lot of the current employees, they don't have any sort of way to gain those or gain the full benefits of those programs. It was actually funny because I looked at, the best companies to work for, and L'Oreal was one of them, of course, because they're really good marketing. Um, and I looked at all of the things that they said that they offer to their employees, and I was like, wow, working actually working at L'Oreal, half of these things I did not know about, or I know that it's way out of your way or something that you have to make it happen for yourself.
S- So when you say marketing, you felt like it was a marketing tactic they used to bring people in, and then internally, what was happening was completely different than what they were projecting or what they were stating on websites and social media.
110%. And that was also one of the things that I brought up and towards HR and the ethics commissioner, and that was also never fully addressed.
There was an ethics commissioner,
Oh yes, there was an ethics commissioner, newly promoted ethics commissioner, um,
a male.
a male. Um, he was Asian, so they promoted him to be like, hey, we have diversity on the board. And I know for a fact, like he felt like he was just a token hire for that position, because he didn't know why he was there. But it was also like, we have this person, you can trust him. But at the end of the day, like he had no power to make changes, to make policy changes. All he could do is just hush people that were reaching out to him and make sure, because at the end of the day, he still works for L'Oreal.
Right.
So he is going to do what is in the best interest of L'Oreal.
I am going to read some of these messages here, and it's mind blowing. You see, somebody said here, she said, "Wow." She said, "These equities exist, but to hear how blatant this is mind blowing." And Dr. Aku, who's been also a guest on our show, she says, "Don't believe the words. We have to look at the actions of companies to know how POC friendly they genuinely are, you know? And it's exactly that. So now, as we move forward, what would be your next steps if you were to go back to corporate, or, where are you at now? And what would you do
So
differently?
I think I would really need to look at the corporate culture. I'm completely, I know I'm privileged enough to have these experiences and learn from them. And where a lot of the people, um, they might not have the support that I had from my family and friends, to be able to, speak about this even publicly. Um, I think the next step would be for me to, uh, if I was to work for somebody or a company again, I would really look at their executive boards and who actually is sitting on there, and if there's actually a way for me to, grow my career to that. Because if I'm not seeing anyone that is representative, of a different culture or color or nationality, that just shows that a company is very narrow minded and they will likely only hire people that are like them. And it's unfortunate because it really speaks to the mindset of the people and the company, whereas they feel safe within their environment. And I wouldn't want to work for another corporation like that. I would want to work for a corporation that, actually sees the value in having diversity and having, people of different backgrounds and cultures, grow and be successful within them.
Right.
And for me personally, I have been working on, different projects that I'm really excited about. Doing a lot more talks, just talking to people, even one on one, about women empowerment and women in business and how difficult it is and how we can all together lean on each other and move forward. I've had many, um, you know, many women and men reach out to me that used to work in a very demanding companies or used to work for L'Oreal or still work there, worldwide, saying that thank you for speaking out. Same thing happened to me, but I didn't say anything. Same thing happened to me. I was fired, paid off. Now I can't say anything publicly, or saying that, you know what, like I still work within the company and I'm not able to say anything publicly, because or else I would be fired, because L'Oreal will fire you.
Was there, it's interesting because oftentimes you think human resources is your go-to, and it it literally chopped your legs off because it's not what you were expecting when you went to look for the actual support. So, which deepens further the self-doubt, the self-doubt and your self-esteem and your confidence, because all that plays on your mind and it's taxing. It becomes very exhausting.
Mhm.
And it's exactly what you said. It leads you to multiple burnouts. But it's good to hear that, now you have next steps in your career, what you would do in hindsight, as a as looking into their executive board to see, are they representative of me,
hmm Um,
right?
100%. And it's not even, are they representative of me? Are they representative of values? Because I recognize that, a company could be all male dominant, but they really, really are passionate about female leadership, and they want to involve somebody that, and they want to change.
Right.
Versus, hey, everything's good here, look somewhere else. Um, you know, so I see the difference in the different passions, and it's really, up to you to recognize and even speak up for yourself. Be like, if you are in a situation where, if I was to get hired again, and I did have another bad experience after L'Oreal, where a manager. She was a woman of color. This is what I wanted. I wanted a manager that was a woman of color. However, there was still a lot of microaggressions and overworking involved. And I had to take a step back, be like, okay, this is happening again. What are the lessons that I learned from L'Oreal? And at that point, I just valued myself way more, because I knew how much I can give to a company and how hard I work. That's never, that's never an understatement. Like, I know how hard I work. I know my value. So I really had to be like, okay, well, do I want to give back to this company all that I have? And that's really when I decided, this is time for a break. I'm going to work on the projects that I'm passionate about, and really just speak on things to spark joy, as Marie Kondo would say, spark joy.
Spark joy.
Yeah.
And then you're leading with your heart.
Yes.
You'll be leading with your heart, and it's a space that doesn't even require work because it's heartfelt. So it's interesting to hear your next steps are project based, and it sounds like something that you're going to be overwhelmingly passionate about, because when you look in hindsight, and that's our next question, what would you have done in hindsight? Because in hindsight, now you know. And then your second experience was, it was short lived, because then you realized what situation you were in again,
Mhm.
right? You were able to take yourself out of it and say, Sahar, this is happening again.
Mhm. And I think it's okay to learn and to make mistakes. I think people are always hesitant
Right.
to make the same mistakes again. And I'm here to say it's completely okay. I've made it multiple times. I probably will again. And I think that's the part of life. That's the part of living. That's the part of our journey. If we're too scared to live life, then you're not living life. And
Right.
I don't regret anything. I don't regret my time at UPS, at L'Oreal, at so many other companies that I work for, because I know that those experiences are what makes me the person I am today. When you talk about hindsight and looking back, One of the, I guess, things that I've learned that I would like to share is, if there is a situation where you know that this should not be happening within the company, don't just trust human resources. Also have a paper trail. Only don't say your complaint in person. Also make sure you have an email being like, hey, this is what we talked about, this is what we discussed, in our meeting. So you have a follow up and be like, please let me know when you're going to be following up with this. Have a deadline for them as well. I wish while I was still at L'Oreal that I also contacted the labor board in Quebec, um, and involved them in my situation, just because it's harder to contact the labor board and go through them when you're not in the company anymore. You
Right.
have to realize that HR is for the company, they're not for the employees. That's why there's unions and management. So if you are ever in a situation, go to the labor board. They are really there to help you. And if anything, they will guide you better. And if a
Right.
company is scared or hesitant or, not sure why you're doing that, maybe that's, a question that you need to ask yourself. Be like, is this a place where I need to be? Is this a place where I'm going to grow? Is this a place that I'm going to be valued?
Right. And those are pretty important questions because once you answered those questions, then you know in advance what you're walking into or not walking into, because then you can make the decision to either take it or leave it.
Yes, um, it definitely, and it just showed me that I valued myself and I valued my ethics more than a company, which I don't think there's anything bad in that at all. And it just eh, like, I just cannot explain the eye opening how eye opening this
Experience.
entire experience was for me. Um,
Absolutely.
And although I don't wish it on anyone else, I don't. This is why I'm here, so people can avoid what I did. I do know, I do see, the experience and the knowledge that I've gained from it, which hopefully helps me pass that on along.
Right. Absolutely. So where are you now? And where are you in your transition? There's a book that's called In the Meantime, which I
Ooh.
really enjoyed. I read it maybe 20 years ago. I'm sure you could still find it. It's called In the Meantime by Iyanla Vazan.
Hmm.
And so now you're in the meantime. So what are you doing in the meantime? And let the audience know where you're at.
So in the meantime, I'm taking private clients. So I have done sales and marketing consulting before. So now I'm really happy that I get to pick and choose the clients that I work with.
Wow.
So I just work with small businesses for now. I also do resume and interview consulting. So that's why I had a lot of previous L'Orealers or other people in the beauty industry reach out to me, um, that I can help, and I help them with their resumes. I help them with their interview skills. I help them gain a little bit more confidence and tell them that this is not the end of their life. I'm working on a few different projects for entrepreneurship. I might, so there's a lot of things that are up in the air right now. For me, I would like something stable. So it's not that I might not go back to work for corporate forever, but I might just think of it more so as a paycheck I
Right.
need to get, more so than my everything, and something that I just need to give my everything all to.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ah, I had tears well up in my eyes. I thought, oh, all that, and exactly what you said. It's all the past experiences which you took, right? Because you turned your negative experience into a positive one. And now you're helping serve others and prepare them for their transition or their career, offering consulting and marketing. And all that is because of the experiences you endured, albeit bad, but at the same time. You took something positive out of it and you went with it. So I'm very happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm still trying to figure it all out. I'm
Of
not
course.
saying that I am perfect by any means. I still do struggle with anxiety and depression because of L'Oreal, and I want to, say that I'm not perfect. I do have flaws, and I want to say that that's okay. We all can do big things while also, still healing from our past traumas.
Absolutely. 100%. There's a LinkedIn user here who said, good. HR understand that they are not there for the employer or employee, but to enforce policies for consistency and fairness across the board. Always follow up, which is what you said. Always follow up any conversation in writing.
Yes. Key, always follow up in writing any conversation with your HR, with your managers, and write a deadline. Be like, hey, just so I'm clear, this is the deadline, because they will push it. Oh, we talked about this. Let's
Right.
talk again. Let's talk about it again in 6 months.
Right.
Be like, well, that's not what we discussed in the meeting, or that's not what's the deadline that we discussed initially, or that's not what we have written down.
Right. Exactly. It's key. And I think there's in those paper trails, then or email or paper trails, they're both the same as long as there is a tracking system. I
Mhm.
think what helps in that situation is that now you're advocating for yourself.
Yes.
So yes, they told you, oh, you should go and find your own advocate. Well, thank you, because now I've learned from this situation and I'm going to start documenting everything because now I'm advocating for myself. I
Mhm.
found a support within me that gives me my worth and my confidence to be able to take this a little bit further.
It also, I found that you're less likely to get gaslighted with paper trails, because
Right,
I've had conversations where I didn't write a follow up email, and the HR manager moved or is no longer with the company. The manager's no longer company, so that conversation never happened. It
right,
doesn't exist.
right,
And it's funny when you say a paper trail, because the ethics commissioner at L'Oreal specifically told me, when I was telling him about my experience and about the gaslighting and harassment and all of those things, he specifically told me, oh, make sure that you're having these conversations one on one with me, and you can tell me everything. But there's no, don't make sure like you're saying it in writing, or if you're booking a meeting, don't be vague about it.
right,
And I trusted him and I believed him, but when it actually um, was time for him to help me,
right.
because I've had those discussions where I had made complaints, it never happened.
Of course. The Dr. Aku says here, she said, sounds like some PTSD from that experience. Healing takes time. And then Lisa also says, hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining in. You always join in. Thank you. And thank you again, Dr. Aku, for joining as well. So Lisa says, there is power in a paper trail.
Yes.
There
Uh,
is power in a paper trail. Do you think that you were, I know this is probably, well, it's the same topic. It's all under diversity, equity, and inclusion. Do you think you were also used as a token?
oh, 100%. 100%. I actually was a part of a photo shoot for their campaign on stand up for street harassment. And I was the face. We had a photo shoot. I was on their international Instagram, where they're talking about stand up for street harassment. And after, I know I talk about George Floyd in all of our conversations. And when the incident with George Floyd happened, and there was no internal discussions or anything happening about within L'Oreal about it, given that we're so literally a multi-million-dollar campaign on stand up for street harassment, and that was one of the things that I brought up to HR. I'm like, how are you able to say that you're standing up for street harassment where you couldn't even stand up for someone dying on the street in broad daylight? Like, I did not understand that, and I specifically asked them to remove that image of me because I told them that what they were doing internally didn't reflect what they were posting, and I did not want to be the face of their token post.
Absolutely. 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 Maisha says here, she goes, I agree. She goes, I'm happy to hear the stories. And Precious says, it's so nice. How happy to be listening.
Precious.
I know when I did that, I thought of her. Exactly. Oh, it's these conversations are powerful, and I think it's very important for us to continue having these united fronts so that we can have these courageous conversations. So my keynote is always that while I try to limit my own bias as much as possible by interviewing, women, and I've interviewed you several times, but it was still women I didn't know, and sticking to the same set of questions for ongoing interviews, it was really impossible for me to remove or to completely remove my own personal experience from the discussion. And without it, I would have not been able to undertake it in the first place. So the continual theme surfaces that if true equality in the workplace is what we're after, sooner or later we will have to tackle the issues that are distinctive to us, our experiences. And especially in the workplace, we need to recognize we're not alone.
Yes.
I know many of you are having transparent and courageous conversations and dialogues with the people around you and trying to figure out how you feel about all this. Ponder that change starts with us. How you resolve those questions will be distinctive to you as women of color and of diverse backgrounds. This will reflect your personal and professional experiences through your own community and workplace. What's essential, though, is that you answer those questions, go through the process, reflect when it happens, how it happens, sit back and ask yourself those crucial questions. Sahar, it's been such a pleasure. Give yourself some grace and space, as I like to say. I know this has been difficult, but I love the place that you're in and the transitions that you've made and the changes that you're making. They're happening in leaps and bounds. And you'll see, like you said, it's not about the paycheck. Now you're just loving what you're doing, and everything is always going to follow.
Yeah.
I so wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and I'm so happy to be getting so much positive feedback from this. And I just want to say that I love when women empower each other. I think that's the best thing, because instead of putting each other down, if we just empower each other and wish the best for each other, I think even more greater things happen.
Absolutely. I agree. Lisa says, thanks, Sahar, for sharing your story. And Dr. Aku also says, she said this while we were having the conversation about marketing. So we can't believe the pictures either. We have to look at the actions. She's repeatedly said that. So that's very true. It's the actions. Thank you so much again, Sahar.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. Always a pleasure. Have a good day.
You too. Always a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.